Together, we've already made a lot of different kinds of sushi. And everybody's always joking in the comments about how I take from scratch really seriously. I mean, last week I made my own ketchup. And yeah, sometimes I take shortcuts, but today, absolutely not. Now, I don't want to ruin sushi for anybody, but one of my favorite types has always been unagi or eel. And I recently learned that a lot of what we have, probably almost all of the unagi you've ever had in a sushi restaurant, unless you're going to Nobu every single day, is the same. It's this pre-barbecued, fake, sugar and chemical pumped, pre-packaged eel that's shipped all across the world to sushi restaurants and is the reason it looks the exact same every single time. Well, fortunately, I have a special treat today. We're gonna get eel from the ground up. And no, we're not gonna go and grow it somewhere and wait for a while for it to mature and then kill it that way. No, I've got live eels right here. And I hate snakes. So this is actually pretty terrifying for me. But like always, I'm doing it for you. These eels are from American Unagi up in Maine. They're grown sustainably, chemical free, and more importantly, they're delicious. Now I'm really curious to see how these differ in flavor and texture from the traditional unagi we're used to in restaurants. But first, I'm gonna have to figure out how to actually fillet these. I'm pretty comfortable with a fish, but I don't know about an eel, especially a live eel. But first, let me show you the goods. You have to be very delicate. Now, believe it or not, these eel actually shipped overnight from Maine. You'll notice I've got ice sitting on top of the tray here. Eel are extremely resilient, which means that as long as I leave just a tiny bit of water in the bottom and keep them very cold, meaning this ice slowly drips through the cracks in the top of my container, they will stay very lively. Now I'll take off my lid and there you have it, live eels. Now let me see if I can just build up the courage to take one of these out. They really do look like snakes, but they actually also seem pretty gentle. And do not let them trick you, they're quite lively. Oh my God. I also cannot even begin to describe how slippery they are. They're somehow able to do this really cool thing with their bodies where they easily slip out of my grip every time I pick them up. What normally happens with these guys are that these glass eels from Maine, which are basically these eels in their baby states, they're actually really beautiful and see-through, would be sent off to China to be fully grown. They're then transported back to the United States after being questionably raised and grown, which is what makes it cool that these were fully born and raised in Maine. So I'll just place one of these babies down so you can see it for just a second. This isn't gonna hurt him being out of the water for just a minute, so don't worry. These eels are gorgeous. They're so incredibly smooth. They can move in such an amazing way. And I just quickly put him back in the water because I don't wanna hurt these eels. But you can see how well they can move, even just across this flat surface. Now it's time to go ahead and actually fillet these eels. If you know me, you know my goal here is to teach you about food, show you some really delicious dishes to make and eat, and sometimes toss in a little bit about sustainability because I'm very into that kind of thing. We've just seen these amazing live eels, and I'm not gonna kill and fillet them in front of you, but I'll quickly go through the basic guide of exactly what I'm doing. Now to start, you have to secure down the head. Once we do that, we're making a cut right down the middle, which basically opens up the spine. And don't worry, the eel's not feeling anything right now. Now we wanna take our knife and basically just remove that spine, which will give us this really nice butterflied fillet. We can take off the head, and using our knife with a pair of pliers, just take off a few of the trimmings on the edge, and this will ultimately leave us with an amazing butterflied fillet of eel. It smells incredible. Now, once I've filleted a couple of these eel, I wanna try a really unique way of cooking it. To sous vide, I'll need to slice my eel in half, then add 2 pieces per vacuum bag, side by side. Once it looks like this, we're ready to pack it up and cook it. Now, before we sous vide, let's make our unagi sauce. We'll start with 3/4 cup of soy sauce, 3/4 cup of mirin, 1/4 cup of sake, and 1/2 cup sugar. Mini whisk this over medium-high heat until the sugar dissolves and the mixture thickens up enough. Once it starts to get really nice and foamy like this, it's usually a pretty good sign that you're close enough to having it nice and thickened up. You want it thick enough that you can paint over the top of your unagi to give that incredible sweet, tangy, salty glaze. Keep an eye on your glaze at this point because I've had this burn on me and it's not pretty. Here's the only problem with mini whisk. If you drop it, you literally lose the entire thing in whatever you're making. We'll pour our unagi sauce into a bowl to let this cool down and hopefully thicken up even more. You can already see that the glaze is coating the pan really well, which is a great sign. Look at that. To each bag of eel, we'll add a little bit of sesame oil and just a touch of our unagi sauce. My hope is that these will provide some incredible flavor when these both cook slowly through the sous vide process. Press to spread this around just a little bit, and then our bags are ready to seal. Now I'll take the bag and feed the edge into my vacuum sealer. Then I'll press down, click, and seal. Now, I should have a nice sealed layer up top and the eel is vacuumed, so we're finally ready to cook. Now we'll add all 3 bags to our sous vide bath, which has been set to 138 degrees Fahrenheit, and we'll cook this for exactly 10 minutes. You've probably heard of sous vide before, and you might not know what it means, so I'll make it simple. Sous vide is low temperature cooking over a long period of time. Typically, the food is put in either a glass jar or a plastic pouch like this, and is cooked over a longer period of time than you normally see at a very precise temperature, which is exactly why I use 138 degrees Celsius. You can look up the precise temperature for any food out there. There's one for chicken, one for steak, one for certain types of vegetables. It's almost a cooking cheat code, but it also allows you to cook things to that perfect temperature, and I don't want to mess this eel up. One of the top comments on my last video was that the person had learned that I speak fluent hand, which now I can see what you mean. After 10 minutes, we'll remove them from the water. You can definitely tell a difference even after it's cooked over those 10 minutes. The flesh on there is no longer translucent, and I'm very excited to take a taste of this. Let's open these bags up and see what we got. We'll slice open each of the bags and gently slide the unagi into a large bowl. We're not done playing around with this just yet. I want to find a really cool way to get that smoky barbecue flavor. Then we'll cover the whole thing in plastic wrap. Now I'll add a few mesquite chips to my smoker because I'm hopeful that these will really pump in that barbecue-y flavor that you often get in eel. Then I'll fit the tip of my smoker into my bowl and seal it as well as possible, after which I'll light it up. We'll do this a couple times to get as much smoke as possible. Then we let it sit. After about 15 to 20 minutes, remove your saran wrap and let all that smoke come off. What we essentially have here is perfectly barbecued unagi. And after trimming it up, we'll be ready to assemble our sushi. Let's move our bowl to the side and place a piece down on our board. I'll gently cut straight through the middle with my knife. This is so incredibly tender now, so it's really not difficult to cut. Once I've trimmed a few pieces and cut it into small, nice portions for sushi, we can go ahead and make our nigiri. As I'm slicing this into portions, I'm realizing how incredibly different this looks from the sushi I get in restaurants. You can actually tell that this is from true, real seafood. Every last marking on this skin is very clear. This hasn't been messed around with needles injecting steroids. This is real, fresh unagi. True eel from sea to sushi. Now, one more quick step we have to do before making our sushi is cut our seaweed. I keep saying sushi, but what we're really making here is nigiri. I'll cut this nori into long, thin strips. And once we have a couple of these, we're good to go. This will be what holds our nigiri together. As for our sushi rice, like I always say in these videos, I won't go through making that every time because that's very simple and you can look up how to do that, but I'm always happy to provide tips. Just make sure you really fluff it up and that it's not too wet. To make our nigiri, I'll start by dipping my fingers into some water. This will allow me to take some sushi rice and start forming it into the correct shape without the rice getting stuck to my hands. If you've ever watched a sushi chef do this at an omakase dinner, you'll see that they don't want to pack it too tightly, but just enough so it holds together in the right shape. Once we've reached the correct shape, I'll take a piece of my unagi and rest it skin side down atop a piece of rice. To finish, I'll dip my paintbrush into the thick glaze we made earlier, then gently brush this atop my unagi. You'll see how perfectly the glaze coats the top of this. And finally, to finish, I'll gently wrap a piece of nori somewhat tightly around my sushi. And there you have it, our piece of unagi nigiri. Now there's just something about this that's incredible. I'm really excited to try this. It is so cool to think about the fact that we did this from a live eel. Then we had our glaze, which you can now see has thickened to an incredible consistency. That gives us that bit of sugar, a little salt, and that unique flavor of sake. And it's all bundled up in this nigiri. Let's take a bite. Wow, that is unexpected. It makes me feel like I've never actually had unagi before. It tastes just so much more natural, and I can get all of those flavors individually. And doing that was such a treat. First, I get that creamy rice, which has been cooked to perfection and is slightly chewy and sticky. I taste that soft, delicate meat of the eel. It's a little smoky, a little sweet, and has a little bit of chewiness in a good way where that skin is. If you have the opportunity, I urge you to try true unagi, true fresh eel. This right here is really a special thing. Now, as always, thank you for watching the video. I'll try to start tossing links for different things I use in the videos, including the eel, in the comments below. But as always, I urge you to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And if you don't want to do that, consider tossing a like on the video below because I'd really appreciate it. We've had some awesome episodes in Sea to Sushi, but this had to be my favorite one yet. You know, I'm happy. I've always been really afraid of snakes, but I think I got over that fear a little bit today. I really enjoyed working with these eels. They seem like very kind, gentle creatures. And I'll have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what we're gonna do next. See ya.